Sophia had once believed in the picture-perfect life. She married her college sweetheart, Aaron, a charming and ambitious man who seemed to adore her. Their life together had felt like a fairy tale, a cozy apartment in the city, late-night dinners, and long talks about their future. Sophia thought she had it all, especially when she discovered she was pregnant. But the day she walked in on Aaron with another woman shattered her world. The betrayal wasn't subtle, nor was it hidden away. It was in their own home, in the bedroom they had shared for years. The shock froze Sophia in place for a moment, the image searing itself into her memory. "Sophia, wait," Aaron shouted, jumping up as the other woman scrambled to cover herself. Sophia didn't wait. She turned on her heel and left, her heart pounding in her chest, and bile rising in her throat. She didn't speak a word as she grabbed her coat and walked out of the apartment, the place that now felt foreign, tainted. For days, Sophia could hardly think. Her hands would tremble uncontrollably, and at night, tears soaked her pillow. She had already told Aaron about the pregnancy only a few weeks before, and now, everything felt even more fragile. Despite that, she made the hardest decision of her life. She left him. When she broke the news to her parents, hoping for comfort, they turned their backs on her. "You have to think about your child," her mother had said coldly. "You can't raise a child alone. Go back and work it out." "But, Mom, he cheated on me. I can't trust him," Sophia whispered through her tears. "That's not the point, Sophia. A family needs stability. You're throwing everything away." With her parents' words still stinging, Sophia left their house feeling more alone than ever. It was as if the ground beneath her feet had vanished, and she was falling endlessly. She had no home to return to, no family for support, and the child she carried felt like her only lifeline. For a while, Sophia wandered through her days in a haze. She rented a small, run-down apartment in a neighborhood far less glamorous than the one she had shared with Aaron. The sounds of the city outside her window didn't feel vibrant anymore, they were just noise, drowning out her thoughts. She started working long hours, trying to numb the pain with busyness, but every night the same loneliness crept in. She couldn't escape it. One cold evening, as she walked home from a particularly grueling day at work, she felt a sudden, sharp pain in her stomach. Panic washed over her. Clutching her belly, she hurried to the nearest hospital. The hours spent in the waiting room were a blur, but thankfully, the doctor reassured her the baby was fine. "Stress isn't good for you, or the baby," the doctor warned gently. "You need to find some support." That night, as she lay in the sterile hospital bed, Sophia made a decision. She couldn't stay broken like this. She needed to pick up the pieces of her life, not just for herself but for her unborn child. She needed to rebuild, from the ground up. It was around this time that she met Alex, a kind man who worked in a nearby cafe. He wasn't flashy or overtly charming like Aaron had been, but there was something about him that made Sophia feel safe. Their conversations were simple at first, just small talk over coffee, but over time, she began to open up to him. Alex listened without judgment. He never pushed her to talk about her past, but when she did, he made her feel like it was okay to feel lost, that she didn't have to be strong all the time. One day, Sophia confessed her biggest fear. "I'm scared I'll never be able to move on. That this pain will never go away." Alex reached out, gently taking her hand. "You don't have to do it alone. You're stronger than you think, Sophia. And I'll be here, for whatever you need." Slowly, with Alex's support, Sophia began to heal. He encouraged her to look beyond the pain, to start dreaming again. She started thinking about what kind of life she wanted for her child, what she wanted for herself. Alex became a constant presence, a rock in her stormy sea. One day, over breakfast, Alex turned to her with a grin. "You know, I've been thinking. Why don't we do something together? Start a small business. You've always talked about wanting to work for yourself." Sophia stared at him, unsure if she was ready for something so big. A business? I don't even know where to begin. We'll figure it out together. I know you've got it in you. His belief in her stirred something deep within Sophia, a flicker of the confidence she had lost. They began planning in earnest, and slowly, the pieces started falling into place. It wasn't easy, but Sophia found herself slowly climbing out of the darkness. There were still hard days, moments when the past would creep in and shake her resolve. But with Alex by her side, she felt like she could face the challenges ahead. For the first time in what felt like forever, Sophia allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could find happiness again. The road ahead wasn't clear, and there would be more trials to come, but in that moment, as she felt her baby kick for the first time, she knew one thing for certain: she was no longer alone in her journey. She had Alex, and they were going to make something beautiful out of the ashes. Months passed, and as Sophia's pregnancy advanced, so did her sense of purpose. The initial fear that had gripped her heart was slowly replaced with determination. Alex's suggestion of starting a business had seemed impossible at first, but the more they planned, the more tangible it became. They had chosen to open a small cafe, a place where people could come to feel the warmth of home, something Sophia had been craving herself. Alex had been working in the coffee industry for years, and Sophia had a knack for creating inviting spaces. Together, they envisioned a cozy, down-to-earth cafe where people could escape the hectic pace of the city. Sophia poured herself into the project. She spent late nights sketching out the layout, choosing furniture, and designing a menu. Every detail felt like a piece of her own healing, a way to reclaim her life after the heartbreak she had endured. Alex was by her side every step of the way, bringing his practical skills and quiet encouragement to balance her vision. There were setbacks, of course. Their budget was tight, and every penny they spent had to be carefully considered. There were permits to file, contractors who were unreliable, and unexpected costs that cropped up at the worst possible moments. On more than one occasion, Sophia found herself on the verge of tears, wondering if they were in over their heads. "Why is everything so hard?" she groaned one night, staring at the incomplete tilework in the cafe kitchen. "We're barely staying on budget, and the opening is supposed to be in 2 weeks. This is never going to work." Alex wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his voice steady. "Hey, we'll figure it out. We've gotten this far, haven't we?" "No giving up now." Sophia looked up at him, her eyes full of doubt. "What if I can't do this, Alex? What if everything just falls apart again?" He smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Sophia, you've already survived so much. You left a man who betrayed you, stood up to your parents when they turned their backs, and now, look at you. You're building something from scratch, something that's yours. Don't underestimate how strong you are." Sophia leaned into him, letting his words settle into her heart. She was still learning to believe in herself again, but Alex had a way of reminding her of her own resilience. Slowly, she started to feel like maybe, just maybe, he was right. The cafe, which they named Second Chances, became their shared dream. They worked day and night, transforming the once dilapidated space into something beautiful. Sophia poured her heart into it, making sure every corner of the cafe reflected warmth and care. The walls were adorned with soft pastels, and wooden tables were scattered with small pots of greenery. A corner shelf was dedicated to books, offering guests a place to unwind with a good story. As the opening day drew near, Sophia's anxiety returned. She stood in the middle of the empty cafe the night before the grand opening, her hands resting on her swollen belly. She was 8 months pregnant now, and the weight of everything felt more real than ever. What if no one came? What if all their hard work went unnoticed? Alex entered quietly behind her and wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands resting on top of hers. "You ready for tomorrow?" he asked softly. Sophia sighed, her eyes tracing the lines of the cafe they had built together. "I don't know. I've put everything I have into this place. What if it's not enough?" "It's more than enough, Sophia. Trust me." She turned to face him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I'm scared. If this doesn't work, I don't know what I'll do. This cafe, it's my new beginning." Alex smiled down at her, his thumb gently brushing her cheek. "It's our new beginning. And even if things don't go perfectly, we'll figure it out." "We always do," Sophia nodded, feeling a little steadier with his words. The fear of failure would always be there, but so was the hope. And for the first time in months, hope felt like it was winning. The grand opening of Second Chances arrived on a bright Saturday morning. Sophia stood behind the counter, nervously adjusting the display of pastries they had worked so hard to perfect. Her heart raced with anticipation, but as the doors opened, the first customer walked in, a woman with a kind smile, drawn by the inviting atmosphere. Then another followed, and another. By mid-morning, the cafe was buzzing with customers, and Sophia could hardly believe her eyes. People lingered at the tables, sipping coffee and chatting, exactly as she had imagined. A few people even complimented the cozy design, commenting on how they felt at home as soon as they walked in. Sophia found herself smiling more than she had in months. It wasn't just about the cafe's success, it was about proving to herself that she could build something beautiful again, even after her world had fallen apart. As the day wound down, Sophia stepped outside for a moment, leaning against the wall to catch her breath. The exhaustion of the day and the weight of her pregnancy were catching up to her, but she couldn't help the joy that swelled in her chest. Alex came out a few minutes later, wiping his hands on his apron. "I think we did it," he said with a grin. Sophia laughed, shaking her head in disbelief. "I can't believe people actually came." Alex chuckled and kissed her gently on the forehead. "Of course they did. You created something special, Sophia. You're incredible." Tears welled up in her eyes, but this time they were tears of happiness. For so long, she had doubted herself, doubted her ability to move on from the heartbreak, doubted her strength to face life's challenges alone. But she wasn't alone anymore. She had Alex, and soon she would have her baby. Together, they had built something from the ashes of her broken past. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "For everything." Alex smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. "You don't need to thank me. We're a team, remember? We've got this." As the sun set over the city, casting a warm glow on the quiet streets, Sophia felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. The future was still uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, she would face it with the strength she had rediscovered, and with the man who had helped her find it. Months passed, and second chances flourished. Sophia was adjusting to life as both a mother and a business owner. After giving birth to a healthy baby boy, Noah, she felt more complete than ever. Her days were filled with the joys of motherhood, late-night feedings, soft baby giggles, and the incredible sensation of holding a life that was a part of her. But there was also the cafe, the business she and Alex had built from nothing. It demanded attention, and balancing it all became a delicate dance. Fortunately, Alex had become her unwavering partner, both in life and in the business. He adored Noah, often taking him in his arms while managing the cafe's books or charming customers with his easygoing nature. His love for Sophia, unspoken but clear, had become a quiet pillar of strength. Life was good, better than Sophia had thought possible after everything that had happened with Aaron. But just as she began to believe she could settle into this newfound happiness, life threw her another curveball. It started with little things: tiredness she couldn't shake, a slight fever that would come and go. Sophia brushed it off as the exhaustion of being a new mother. After all, sleepless nights were part of the package, and she was running a business. But as the days turned into weeks, her symptoms worsened. One morning, as she stood behind the cafe counter, taking an order, she felt the room tilt. The sounds of the customers' chatter became muffled, and her vision blurred. The next thing she knew, she was on the floor, surrounded by concerned faces, Alex kneeling beside her, his voice distant as he called her name. "Sophia, Sophia. Can you hear me? She blinked, trying to focus on his face. I'm fine, just dizzy, but Alex wasn't convinced. This isn't just tiredness, Sophia. You've been feeling off for weeks. He insisted on taking her to the hospital, and after several tests, the doctor delivered the news that hit like a freight train. Sophia was diagnosed with a serious autoimmune condition, one that could affect her energy, her immune system, and potentially, her ability to manage her day-to-day life. Sitting in the sterile doctor's office, Sophia felt as if the walls were closing in around her. Her mind raced. Noah, the cafe, Alex. How could she take care of everything if her body was betraying her? What does this mean? She asked the doctor, her voice barely above a whisper. It means you'll have to make some changes, the doctor explained gently. With treatment, you can manage the symptoms, but stress and overexertion could make things worse. You'll need to rest more, take care of your health. Sophia's heart sank. Rest? How could she rest when her life was already bursting at the seams? The cafe was still so new, still finding its footing. And Noah, her precious baby boy, needed her more than ever. How could she slow down when there was so much to do? On the way home, Alex remained quiet, glancing over at Sophia as she sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window. She could feel the weight of his concern, but she didn't know how to talk about it yet. It all felt too raw, too unfair. After everything she had been through, why now? Why this? When they finally got home, Alex gently took her hand. We'll figure this out, Sophia. She turned to face him, her voice trembling. How, Alex? How am I supposed to figure this out? I can barely keep up as it is. How do I run the cafe and take care of Noah if I can't even trust my own body? Alex squeezed her hand, his eyes steady and full of reassurance. You don't have to do it all on your own. We'll find a way. I'll take on more at the cafe, and we can hire more help if we need to. You don't have to be everything for everyone. I don't want to let you down, she whispered, her voice cracking with the weight of her fears. Or Noah. Or our customers. I feel like I'm failing. Alex knelt in front of her, looking up into her tear-filled eyes. Sophia, you're the strongest person I know. You're not failing anyone. You're facing this head-on, just like you've faced everything else. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm in this with you, for the long haul. His words were like a lifeline in the storm of her thoughts, grounding her in the present moment. She didn't have to have all the answers right now. All she had to do was take one step at a time, and she didn't have to do it alone. Over the next few weeks, Sophia tried to adjust to her new reality. It wasn't easy. Some days she felt almost normal, her energy returning enough to give her hope that everything would be okay. Other days, her body ached, and the simplest tasks felt impossible. But Alex was true to his word. He took on more of the workload at the cafe, and together, they hired an extra pair of hands to help run the day-to-day operations. Sophia found herself learning a new kind of strength, the strength to let go. She had always been the one to take care of everything, the one to fix things, to push through no matter what. But now, she had to learn to lean on others, to allow herself to rest when her body demanded it. Noah became her anchor through it all. Even on her hardest days, when fatigue washed over her like a heavy blanket, one look at his tiny face was enough to remind her why she couldn't give up. His innocent eyes, the way he reached for her with his small hands, it gave her a purpose beyond the cafe, beyond her own struggles. She was his mother, and she would fight through this for him. But just as Sophia began to find a fragile balance, another storm hit. One evening, Alex came home from a late-night meeting with investors, his face clouded with worry. Sophia, there's something we need to talk about, he said, sitting down beside her on the couch, his voice tight. She felt her stomach drop. What's wrong? He ran a hand through his hair, the tension clear in his every movement. The cafe, we're in trouble. The numbers aren't adding up like we thought. Expenses are higher than our revenue, and the loan payments are catching up to us faster than expected. Sophia stared at him, her heart pounding. What do you mean? I thought we were doing okay. We were. But with the extra help we hired and the unexpected maintenance issues last month, we're behind. We're going to need to make some serious decisions if we want to keep the cafe afloat. Panic surged through Sophia's chest. After everything they had built, could they really lose it all? She had poured her heart into second chances. It was more than a business, it was a symbol of her survival, her resilience. What do we do? She asked, her voice shaking. How do we fix this? We'll have to cut costs where we can and maybe scale back a bit. It won't be easy, but we can do it. Sophia felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. It seemed like every time she took a step forward, life knocked her 2 steps back. But as Alex sat beside her, his hand finding hers, she reminded herself of one thing: she wasn't the woman she used to be. She was stronger now. She had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and sickness. She had built a life from nothing before, and she could do it again. Taking a deep breath, she nodded. Okay. Let's do whatever we need to do. And as she sat there, feeling the storm raging around her, Sophia knew one thing: she had come too far to give up now. She would fight for her cafe, her family, and herself, no matter what came next. The weeks following Alex's revelation about the cafe were some of the hardest Sophia had faced. They made tough decisions, cutting down on staff hours, reducing the menu, and finding creative ways to minimize expenses. Sophia had to scale back her involvement even more as her health became more unpredictable, leaving Alex to shoulder most of the daily operations. But even as they scrambled to keep the cafe afloat, there was a weight of uncertainty hanging over them like a storm cloud. The cafe had once been their dream, a symbol of the life they were building together. Now it felt fragile, like it could slip through their fingers at any moment. For Sophia, it was more than just a business. It was a reflection of her fight to rebuild her life after Aaron's betrayal, a tangible reminder that she could rise above heartbreak. The thought of losing it filled her with dread. But life didn't stop for them to catch their breath. As Noah grew, so did his needs. He was nearly a year old now, crawling everywhere and demanding more attention than ever. Sophia loved every moment with him, even on the exhausting days when her illness flared up and her body refused to cooperate. But juggling motherhood, a struggling business, and her health took a toll, and there were times when Sophia found herself sinking into doubt. One evening, after a particularly difficult day at the cafe, Sophia sat on the floor of the nursery, rocking Noah to sleep in her arms. Tears welled in her eyes as she watched her son's tiny face, peaceful in sleep. How could she keep doing this? How could she keep fighting when everything felt like it was slipping away? Alex found her there, sitting in the dim light of the nursery, and knelt beside her. "Hey," he whispered softly, stroking Noah's head. "You look exhausted." "Come to bed," Sophia shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm scared, Alex. I don't know if we can do this. We've cut back so much already, and it still feels like we're sinking. What if we lose everything?" Alex's expression was tender, but there was worry in his eyes. He sat down beside her, pulling her into his arms as she leaned her head against his shoulder. "I don't know what's going to happen," he admitted quietly. "But we've made it through worse, haven't we? We're not going to give up now." Sophia closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his presence comfort her. He was right, they had survived so much already. The heartbreak of Aaron's betrayal, the struggle to start a new life, the challenges of raising Noah and running the cafe. But the weight of it all felt so heavy now, and for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure if she had the strength to carry it anymore. "I don't want to fail," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "This cafe, this life, it's everything we've worked for. I don't want to let it all slip away. Alex kissed her forehead gently. You're not failing, Sophia. Even if we have to make hard choices, even if things don't go the way we planned, you've already succeeded in so many ways. Look at everything you've built. Look at Noah. Look at us. That's what matters. His words touched something deep inside her. She had been so focused on the fear of losing the cafe, of not living up to her own expectations, that she had forgotten what truly mattered. Yes, the cafe was important. It was her dream. But her family, her health, and her happiness were more important. The next morning, Sophia woke up with a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in weeks. She knew it was time to make a hard decision. As much as she loved second chances, she had to think about her health and her family. She couldn't keep pouring every ounce of her energy into the cafe at the cost of everything else. Something had to change. That evening, as she and Alex sat down for dinner after putting Noah to bed, Sophia took a deep breath. Alex, I've been thinking about the cafe, she began, her voice steady but hesitant. I think it's time for us to let go, at least, for now. Alex looked up from his plate, his brow furrowing in concern. What do you mean? I can't keep doing this. My health is getting worse, and I can't be there the way I need to be. And you've been carrying so much of the weight. It's not fair to either of us. Maybe we should consider selling, or at least stepping back and hiring a manager to run things. I don't know. But we can't keep going like this. Alex was silent for a long moment, his eyes searching hers. Are you sure? He asked softly. I know how much this cafe means to you. It's your dream. Sophia smiled faintly, tears brimming in her eyes. It was my dream. But right now, I have to take care of myself, and I want to be there for Noah, for you. I don't want to burn out trying to save something when I'm already stretched too thin. I'll always love second chances, but maybe it's time to let go and focus on what really matters. Alex's face softened, and he reached across the table to take her hand. If that's what you want, then I'm with you. We'll figure it out together. You've already given so much, and you don't have to do it alone anymore. A sense of relief washed over Sophia as she squeezed his hand. It wasn't the decision she had ever imagined making, but it felt right. For so long, she had been holding on to the idea that she had to do it all, be the perfect mother, the successful businesswoman, the resilient survivor. But now she understood that true strength didn't come from doing everything, it came from knowing when to let go. Over the next few weeks, they quietly put the cafe on the market, and within a month, they found a buyer. It wasn't an easy process, and there were moments when Sophia felt a pang of grief at the thought of letting go of what she had built. But with Alex by her side, she knew they were making the right choice. On the last day before the cafe officially changed hands, Sophia stood in the empty dining area, her fingers brushing the smooth wood of the counter where she had spent so many long hours. Alex walked up behind her, slipping an arm around her waist. Are you okay? He asked gently. Sophia nodded, a soft smile on her lips. Yeah, I think I am. It's strange, letting go of something that's been such a big part of my life. But it feels like the right thing to do. Alex kissed her temple, holding her close. It's not the end, you know. It's just the beginning of something new. She leaned into him, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. You're right, she whispered. It's just the beginning. As they walked out of the cafe hand in hand, Sophia looked back one last time. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the windows, and for the first time, she didn't feel the sting of loss. Instead, she felt hope. Hope for the future she was building with Alex and Noah, a future where her strength wasn't defined by what she held on to but by what she was willing to let go of. They were ready to face whatever came next, together. The months after selling the cafe were both challenging and freeing for Sophia. Without the constant pressure of running a business, she had more time to focus on her health and her family. Yet, there was an emptiness too, an uncertainty about what would come next. She had spent so long pouring her heart into the cafe, into making it work, that she felt a little lost without it. But Alex had been right. This wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something new. It just took time for Sophia to fully understand what that meant. One chilly autumn morning, as golden leaves scattered across the sidewalk outside their small home, Sophia woke up with a sense of lightness she hadn't felt in a long time. Noah was growing fast, now a lively toddler who filled their days with laughter and joy. His first steps had come just after they sold the cafe, and his bright smile was the antidote to any lingering doubts Sophia had about her decision. More than that, her health had improved. She still had bad days, but with fewer stressors in her life, her body was finally getting the rest it needed. The autoimmune condition wasn't something she could cure, but she could manage it. And for the first time since her diagnosis, she felt in control. One evening, after Noah had gone to bed and the house was quiet, Sophia sat down beside Alex on the couch, a warm cup of tea in her hands. She rested her head on his shoulder, content just to be in the moment with him. The crackling of the fire in the hearth was the only sound as they sat in peaceful silence, a welcome contrast to the chaos they had weathered together. "Do you ever miss it?" Alex asked quietly, his voice breaking the stillness. "The cafe, I mean," Sophia thought for a moment before answering. "I thought I would. At first, it felt like losing a piece of myself. But now, I'm not so sure. I think what I miss isn't the cafe itself, but the idea of it, what it symbolized for me." Alex turned to look at her, his eyes full of warmth. "And what was that?" She smiled softly, running her fingers through her hair as she reflected. "It was proof that I could build something from nothing. That I could survive, even after everything with Aaron. That I was strong enough to stand on my own." Alex shifted closer, wrapping his arm around her. "You did all of that, Sophia. And you're still doing it, every single day. The cafe was just a chapter in your story. There's so much more ahead." His words hung in the air between them, and Sophia felt something stir in her heart, something she hadn't felt in a long time. A sense of possibility. He was right. The cafe had been a chapter, and a beautiful one at that, but it wasn't the whole story. She had been so focused on proving she could survive that she hadn't stopped to imagine what it would be like to thrive. As the days turned into weeks, Sophia began to think about what came next. She and Alex had enough money from the cafe sale to keep them comfortable for a while, but she wasn't one to sit idle. She wanted to create again, to build something meaningful. One day, while playing with Noah in the park, an idea began to take shape. She watched as her son laughed, chasing the colorful leaves in the breeze, and she realized that what she loved most wasn't the cafe or the business itself. It was the act of creating spaces where people could feel at home, where they could find comfort and connection. She had done that with the cafe, and now, she wanted to do it on a more personal level. That night, she shared her idea with Alex. "I've been thinking," she began, excitement in her voice. "What if I started a design business? Not a big one, something small, where I could help people create spaces they love. Homes that feel like home, not just houses." Alex's eyes lit up, and he smiled. "I love that idea, Sophia. It's perfect for you. You've always had a gift for making places feel special." Her heart swelled with hope as she realized that this was what she had been missing. The cafe had been one way of expressing that gift, but it wasn't the only way. She could start again, on her own terms. Over the next few months, Sophia slowly began building her new venture. It was different this time, no frantic rush to prove herself, no overwhelming pressure to succeed. She took things at her own pace, taking on one project at a time, designing spaces for friends and neighbors, word of her talent spreading quietly throughout the community. As she found her rhythm, Sophia realized something profound. She was happier now than she had ever been. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had learned to let go of the need for perfection. Life had shown her its worst, and she had survived. Now, she was living, Not just surviving, but truly living. One afternoon, while working on a design project in her home office, Alex came in, carrying Noah on his shoulders. Sophia looked up from her sketches, laughing as Noah giggled and tugged on Alex's hair. "Mama," Noah called, his little arms reaching for her. Sophia stood, scooping him up into her arms, and kissed his chubby cheek. "What's up, my little adventurer?" she asked, as Noah babbled in response. Alex smiled at them, leaning against the doorframe. "You know, I think we're doing okay." Sophia looked at him, her heart full. "Yeah, I think we are." They were more than okay. They had weathered the storms, faced the heartbreak, and built something new, something that wasn't defined by success or failure, but by love, resilience, and the quiet strength of moving forward together. That night, as Sophia stood at the window, watching the stars twinkle above, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The betrayal she had once thought would break her had only made her stronger. The cafe she had poured her heart into had been a stepping stone, not the destination. And now, in this new chapter of her life, she realized that happiness wasn't something you found, it was something you built, piece by piece, with the people you loved. As Alex came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, Sophia leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her back. "Whatever comes next," she whispered, "I'm ready." And for the first time in a long time, she truly meant it.